Last time on D&D, featuring Adrian Silverstrength, the human paladin, Apostrophe, the Goliath cleric, Dickpoop, the elven wizard, Morsus Firebeard, the hill dwarf cleric, and Rex James, the bronze dragonborn bard. Alright, in this case, I'm actually going to combine Session 7 and Session 8 together, because as it would turn out is the big fight at the end of Session 7, we had to actually pause because it was already getting later than what we normally played, and this is when we're still playing in person, so people need to drive home, some people have a longer drive than others. So we had stopped in mid-combat, which is jarring because this is like the main boss that they're fighting at the end of Session 7. So to put a pause on that and then try to recapture that intense feeling in Session 8 was difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to combine the two, so this will actually be Session 7 and Session 8. Having used their javelins to fortify a small camp, the party recovers from their previous battle with the Displacer Beast. The party gathers their supplies and begins moving back towards the Mother Tree, sometimes called the Spear or the Arrow, depending on the legend of that tree. The legend states that long ago there was an elf by the name of Portland Hollowroot. He believed he could finally rid the world of the biggest bane that the elves had ever known, which is the orcs. He tapped into magic he should not have, and he opened portals to the elemental planes, where he bargained with different genies. These genies all agreed to help him, but as soon as they entered the world, they discovered that Portland had made these deals with all of these genies, some of which these genies did not get along with. As that happened, a war between the planes erupted over the whole world. Nifika watched in horror as all these woodlands of the world began to burn. Her children, the Fae, were being slaughtered. She appointed an angel by the name of Fariston, who Florenza herself had used during the Demon War. What Nifika was not aware of is that Fariston had briefly touched a weapon known as the Sun Cutter, and it had actually managed to corrupt his soul. So as Fariston journeyed to the Prime Material Plane to put a stop to these genies warring across the world, Fariston soon found that he judged all whom he gazed upon, and so he began to kill without mercy or impunity. If there was any lack of purity in their hearts, elf, orc, genie, anything, Fariston killed them. Nifika from the heavens pleaded for him to stop, but he could not, nor would he. He had come to purify those that were tainted. Nifika was forced, and this is where the story varies. Some say that she threw a spear from the heavens, some say that she shot an arrow from the heavens. Either way, it pierced Fariston's heart and plunged him deep into the soil, where he was trapped magically by this spear or arrow. From this spear arrow, roots began to grow. This spear and arrow was so large that it became the largest tree in the Jade Forest. It's sometimes known as the Spear Tree, the One Tree, but most commonly it is known as the Mother Tree because of its size. Nifika assigned one of her own daughters, a dryad by the name of Danella, and appointed her own unicorn named Starhorn to guard the prison of Jade Forest that would keep Fariston in check. For those thousands of years he yearned to break free, and his voice whispered ever so gently outward until a small group of cult fanatics finally gained the courage to set him free. Nifika sensed the danger and urged one of her own angels to reach out to a mortal who was close by to help ensure that the dryad was not slain. A cleric by the name of Phelan was appointed. However, Phelan and her companions failed to reach the dryad in time, and when they got there, she had already been slain. The party eventually stumbles to a clearing where several animals are piled up in the center, and all of them are dead. As the party is investigating these dead animals, they hear something rustling in the bushes, and they slowly retreat away and observe what is coming. And it's none other than a carrion crawler, something that the party has already previously encountered and had a rough time with. The carrion crawler basically begins devouring these animals before it suddenly detects the parties and attacks them, sensing that these party members may be here to try to steal its food source, the same situation that happened in the mines. Now, in combat, often if the animal is of animal intelligence or anything lower, I typically look at how many players I have. So if I have 6 players, I'll assign a 1 to this person, 2 to that person. I'll just roll a d6 and say, okay, it looks like it's attacking you. With the more intelligent creatures, they may react to someone rushing up to them. So for example, if a fighter runs up to a goblin and starts attacking the goblin would probably defend itself the whole time. until it potentially sees like a healer. So if a goblin notices that someone is healing someone else, they know that this healer can keep their party members up. So now the healer is the greater threat. So they may basically try to retract and go after the healer instead. The really good creatures, and I'm going to use Driders as an example, they will often set up traps. So for example, this happens in this adventure, not in this session, but way later. The Driders purposely led the adventure party into a cave where there was like 2 Driders on the ground, basically appearing to be like fleeing, while there were several other Driders on the ceiling. So the party chased after these 2 while several others hung back, like the ranger hung back and the spellcasters hung back. So what happened is these 3 Driders, basically each of them tried to drop fairy fire on these people in the back, and with 3 chances to land it, basically landed on most of them. Then they dropped down and basically attacking the party in the back at advantage. Now the main fighters up front, and now they have to try to disengage, and if they do, those Driders up front with them basically get an attack of opportunity and also get a chance to basically chase them down and drop fairy fire on them and do much more. So Driders, for example, in my campaign are very, very intelligent in terms of how they hunt. But in this case, since it's a carrion crawler, I just literally rolled a d10, and then 1 to 2 was this person, 3 to 4, because I think there were still 5 players at this point. So essentially it landed on Adrian. I flavored it that it was sensing that this armored individual who has this big sword appeared to be the biggest threat to it. It immediately lunged at Adrian and managed to grasp it within its tentacles. The carrion crawler was not able to consume him in one bite. The party reacted, attempting to basically now try to free Adrian from the carrion crawler's grasp. Adrian, however, called upon his goddess, which is Prena, and enchanted his blade with sacred flame and scored a critical hit upon the carrion crawler, striking it in the left eye. The creature then lunged for Rex James, which it managed to ensnare, and believing itself now in dire trouble, having taken some damage from the party, attempted to flee with the Draconian Bard as its free meal. But the party was able to put it down as it attempted to flee with their comrade. The party eventually arrives closer to the mother tree, where they see what appears to be a blonde elf female casting a spell. There is a ring around this massive tree that spreads out like a 20-foot radius around this whole massive tree. And in this area, the scenery is like green, it's still lush, everything looks the way it should be, but beyond that 20-foot ring, everything looks decayed and dying. Believing she's elven, Dick approaches her and speaks Elvish, but they're all stunned when she looks up from her casting and see that she is perhaps one of the most beautiful women they've ever seen. And Dick realizes she's not an elf, she is actually an actual dryad. She had sensed that her sister Danella and the unicorn Starhorn had both been killed and evil had been done. So she left her force that she normally protects to travel here to try to heal and keep the mother tree from being corrupt and basically preventing danger or any more corruption to happen here. She tells the party that there's a band of demon worshippers nearby. They're the ones responsible for essentially letting this demon out, and she's been able to hold them off with her magic, but she claims there's a witch with white hair that is among them. That seems to be the source of their power and the danger, and that she must be destroyed in order to save the woods. And as this woman, this dryad, is explaining this, she kneels down, thankful that the party's here to help her and basically give her a relief from trying to keep these woods basically protected. And she picks up a white rabbit and begins to stroke its fur as she continues to talk to them. She goes on to basically explain that they attack at random times, these demon worshippers. They ride on horses, but when they do, the witch with white hair is always with them, directing them what to do. She sighed, exhausted, as she placed her hand on Dick's shoulder, thankful for someone to be there to help her, as I said. Now keep in mind what she said, because that is going to play an important part to what is coming up. And you may already recognize this. If you've watched the D&D cartoon, you already know where I'm going with this. Anyway, the party agrees to help the Dryad and learns that the demon worshippers are to the north of the mother tree. As the party moves north, they see horse tracks in the tainted forest, now more of a jungle as they're moving further and further away from the mother tree. Eventually, the party spots something known as a quasit. This is something that Dick realizes that is often a servant to evil wizards. The party opts to surprise the quasit and put it down as quickly as possible so that it cannot telepathically communicate with the witch. So launching a volley of weapons, each of the party members strike a hit on their target, killing the quasit. Dick then uses his unseen servant spell to carry and make the quasit move as if it were still alive. So he's kind of doing this puppeteering thing. Normally, I'm not sure if a unseen servant could technically do that. Usually they're just something that says, go open a door, go do this, go pick up that wood and bring it over here. Making it move like a puppet, I guess it could do it. I actually like the flavor of it. Let's make it happen. Give me like an Arcana check to see how well your unseen servant is basically able to mimic its movement. So the party continues north, and the party spots what they believe is a barbed devil. Again, this is Dick with his Arcana knowledge. So Dick uses his unseen servant to make it look like the Quasit is still alive. They hear the barbed devil ask,
"What is the status of the witch?"
The party tries to use mimicry and play it off, but Morsus feels like it's going poorly, and the party agrees to launch an attack. They fight the barbed devil, who seems to be putting up a great fight, but as it gets bloodied, it stops and says,
"Fine, show me, demon."
The party's puzzled why the barbed devil is calling them a demon. Dick, who understands it, suddenly speaks Elvish, explaining that they're not the demons, that he's the demon, and this is all some kind of trick that the demon is trying to do. After some back and forth with the barbed devil, something becomes very clear. Both sides have been played. Dick discovers that when the Dryad placed her hand on his shoulder thanking him, she invoked an illusion upon him. Him and his party members around him all appear to look like demons. So using Detect Magic, they discover that war paint on the centaurs has also been tainted with magic that creates the illusion that they appear like demons. This is due to the tainted water in the wood that they are using to create their war paint. Suddenly it becomes very clear that the horse tracks that they saw back of the path are actually not horse tracks, but they belong to centaurs. They also discover that the Quasit that they killed was a teenage female centaur named Carastone Shadestepper, and she had been one of the youngest centaurs tribe's rogues/scout. It then dawns on them that the Dryad, who was telling them everything, this was all through twisted lies. The witch with the white hair was actually her. She was holding a white rabbit. So if you've watched the D&D cartoon, there is an episode where the dungeon master says, "Beware of the wizard with the white hair," and sure enough, Venger has created an illusion of himself, and he's petting a white rabbit. I loved that episode so much because of how well that was written. Like the witch with the white hair, you automatically think hair as in hair that you're wearing, not hair as in HARE, even though I specifically said she kneels down and picks up a white rabbit and starts petting it. So now they've understood what has happened. Her directing the attackers was actually her directing the party. Her excited to see the party help was her actually excited to know that she was going to cause more misery and tragedy using the party, destroying as much of the innocents and the centaurs in these woods, the centaurs who are here to basically try to protect the woods. The centaurs are furious that the party killed Carastone, but the Chief Bloodhooves, knows that the Dryad is to actually blame for this. He doesn't forgive the party at all. He is furious with the party, but he knows the true enemy here is not the party. They were manipulated just like the centaurs were, and now they know that they have to go after this quote-unquote Dryad. They also know that they probably need the party if they have any hope of defeating this Dryad. The party has gotten close, and the party can try to trick this Dryad into saying, "Hey, we've done what you've asked, everything's taken care of," and then launch an attack. So they make a plan that the centaurs will attack from one side while the party attacks from the other. Requiring a full night's rest, the party camps a bit away from the centaur camp, and when Adrian takes watch, nothing happens. He taps Dick to take the next watch, and just before sunset, Dick hears the sounds of a mourning woman as she calls out. Dick immediately tries to wake up the others, but only Morsus wakes up. Once he sees this spirit, they learn that the witch with the white hair kidnapped her husband and daughter and then snapped her neck, and now she is stuck in the form of a banshee, and she's cursed to awaken each day at the same time to repeat the same thing, looking for her husband and daughter. The party then moves in to attack, and in doing so discover that the witch is no longer attempting to hide the illusion. She reveals what she truly is, which is a green hag. She never buried the Dryad Danella, but rather she cut out her heart and used the fallen angel's essence to open a dark portal, and has brought unnatural creatures into this forest and basically spreading the corruption, making it look like a jungle. This is where the carrion crawler comes from. This is where the displacer beasts come from. All these natural creatures that are not normally found in these woods, they're coming through this portal because of this green hag using very dark magic. That's it. The party goes into attack, spells and weapons fly, and the party does get her bloodied. This is where we stopped originally. We stopped here because it was getting late, it was past time, people had to drive home and stuff like that. So imagine building up all of this and then having to stop as the party actually gets her bloodied through combat, and then trying to pick this up on the next session. So what happens on the next session, unfortunately Rex James was not able to make it, and he would soon depart the game. I'll explain why when I get to that. So basically the fight with the hag starts. Rex James gets knocked out. This is my way of basically explaining why he doesn't do anything during combat. Morsus casts Fair Fire on the hag, which now prevents her from going invisible. The hag claws at a few people, doing catastrophic damage. Apostrophe does a called shot to the hand holding the heart of the Dryad, and I said, the only way to do this, it's a small object, you're going to have to roll a natural 20. He rolled a natural 20. So the hag's hand is blown off. The hag claws him with the other hand and does more damage to him. So Apostrophe backs up, takes another called shot on his turn. I said, okay, it's another natural 20 to blow off her other hand. Wouldn't you know it? He rolled another natural 20. Now, granted, that is incredible. So there's this, whole instance where everyone kind of leaped up and was like, what? 2 natural 20s in a row? What? And everyone's freaking out. However, that ruined my encounter. I had this hag who now can't turn invisible to try to do some magic stuff because she's got Fairy Fire on her because she failed that save. Both of her hands have now been blasted, which takes away basically her ability to basically cast and claw. So she's got nothing to really do. In this fight, she's basically like, well, I can use magic eventually to heal myself and get my hands back, and I'll find these guys and get my revenge. So she tries to flee. However, Dick casts the grease spell, and guess what? She fails. So she slides in the grease, the party leaps on her, basically everyone dogpiles her and basically starts pummeling her with daggers and swords, and basically there's nothing she can do. She's knocked prone, they have advantage on hitting her because they're right there doing melee. The party eviscerates her, like there's nothing left of her by the time the party's done. She is a pile of blood, and the centaurs have watched and they're cheering. After the hag has been murdered for all that she's done, the centaurs are cheering. They bring the party back to the centaur camp. These woods need to heal. This is going to take ages to heal, what this hag has done to the woods. And also what the humans who first came in here and basically sacrificed the original Dryad, Danella, what they've done. They've damaged everything. They've ruined everything about these woods. So the centaurs are upset. But during this celebration, it gets interrupted by the spirit of a centaur who has been ripped in half. The party goes to investigate basically the other centaur village where supposedly this group of centaurs, where the husband and daughter lived from the previous spirit that they saw. They find that woman's body ripped in half, and while they're here, they get attacked by displacer beasts, the last of these creatures. Party takes them down, they kick down the door, and Apostrophe finds out that there is another creature inside of here, something he's never seen before. It is an intellect devourer, and it's a modified version. I toned it down, but it leaps on his face and basically starts chewing away at his brain, which basically knocks his intelligence down. It's not physically chewing on his brain, it's basically just causing psychic damage, and it does so much that it essentially temporarily knocks Apostrophe's intelligence down to 1. So that was basically sessions 7 and 8 combined. The reason I did those quick little encounters with the displacer beast and the intellect devourer and stuff like that, and the severed spirit, was because we had stopped the hag fight, which should have been all one session if it only gone a little bit faster. So when I started this session, I really didn't plan much more after the hag fight. I just basically thought, okay, we'll do some role playing with the centaurs and stuff like that. But they did a lot of role-playing really quick, and we still had plenty of time, so I was just flipping through my book while they're role-playing, and I was like, oh yeah, this is what they say, and the whole time I'm flipping through my book, just looking for things to throw at the party, just to basically consume more time and basically make it the full 3 hours that we typically play, which is usually from 6 to 9, back when we were playing in person. So that's why there was a lot of sudden random encounters after it. I normally don't do that. I try to make everything. If there's a monster, it's either going to be a random encounter, which I usually don't do very often, or it's something that ties to the story for some reason. There's a reason why this monster is here, and in this case, the only reason these monsters were here was to basically extend the time. So that'll do it for sessions 7 and 8. Thank you.